There's a moment in life when everything you thought you could count on falls apart. You wake up one morning and the person you trusted isn't there anymore. The plan you built your life around crumbles, and suddenly all the strength you thought you had feels like dust in your hands. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there right now. That quiet moment when you realize no one's coming to save you. The job won't fill the emptiness. The relationship won't fix the pain. And even your own mind, the thing you used to rely on, now feels like it's working against you. I've seen that moment in hundreds of people, clients, friends, even myself. A man who lost his business after 20 years looked me in the eyes once and said, "I don't even know who I am without the work." A woman told me after her divorce, "I didn't just lose him. I lost the version of me that only existed when I was loved." And you know what the Stoics would say to both of them? They'd say, "Good, now you can finally begin." Because that's the brutal truth no one wants to hear. Life will break you, not once, not twice, again and again until you stop clinging to the illusions that were never yours to keep. Seneca said, "Fire tests gold and adversity tests the brave." The point isn't to avoid the fire, it's to walk through it and come out purified. Because what breaks you isn't what ruins you, it's what reveals you. The Stoics never promised comfort, they promised clarity. They believed that pain is not your enemy, confusion is. When you're lost in the storm, it's not the lightning that destroys you, it's forgetting where the shore is. And Stoicism, at its core, is that inner compass that always points you back home. But let's be honest, modern life makes that hard. Everywhere you look, there's pressure to smile, to post, to prove that you're okay. No one talks about the nights you can't sleep, the mornings you wake up already exhausted, the days you pretend to be fine when your chest feels like it's collapsing. We hide our pain because we think strength means silence, but Marcus Aurelius would disagree. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment of it." In other words, you don't have to deny the pain, you just have to stop letting it define you. That's what this video is about, not motivational slogans, not false positivity, but the raw, unfiltered Stoic truth, the kind that hurts to hear, but heals you once you accept it. These aren't just ideas from dusty philosophy books, they're living principles, tested in war, exile, heartbreak, failure, and loss. Epictetus was a slave. Marcus was an emperor. Seneca was forced to take his own life. Different lives. Same truth. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control how you meet it. When I started coaching people, I noticed something fascinating. The ones who grew the fastest weren't the ones with perfect lives. They were the ones who stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What now?" That shift from victim to student is the moment transformation begins. That's when you stop fighting life and start learning from it. I know this from experience. Years ago, when I hit rock bottom, when I lost everything I thought I was building, I remember sitting in silence for hours, staring at nothing. And a thought came. Maybe this isn't destruction, maybe it's purification. And from that moment, everything changed. Not the circumstances, me. The world didn't get easier, but I got steadier. And that's the gift of Stoicism, not escaping the chaos, but walking calmly through it. So if you've ever felt broken, misunderstood, lost in a life you no longer recognize, stay here with me. Because in the next few minutes we're going to explore 9 brutal truths the Stoics lived by. Truths that might break your heart wide open, but in that breaking, they'll set you free. These truths will challenge you. They'll ask you to look at pain differently. They'll ask you to stop running from the things that scare you and start seeing them as teachers. And maybe by the end you'll realize you were never being punished, you were being prepared. This isn't just another video about philosophy, It's a mirror that shows you who you really are once everything else is stripped away. So take a deep breath, let the noise fade, and get ready, because the truth might hurt, but it's the kind of hurt that sets you free. You've made it this far, and that already means something, because not everyone has the courage to look truth in the eye. Most people distract themselves with noise, hoping pain will fade if they scroll fast enough, but you're still here, which means you're ready to face what most people run from. So let's begin. 1. The treasure hidden in your worst days. Your worst day isn't your punishment, it's your teacher. We all want life to feel good, predictable, gentle, but reality doesn't care about comfort, it cares about growth. And growth rarely feels good at first. Think back to a time you thought your life was over, when the breakup shattered you, when the job disappeared, when the future you planned vanished overnight. You probably thought, why me? But years later, looking back, you realize that pain forced you to rebuild differently. It stripped away the illusions you didn't even know were weighing you down. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from the judgments we make about them." That's the key. It's not what happens, it's what you tell yourself about what happens. Pain is raw, but suffering is the story we attach to it. When life breaks you open, it's not cruelty. It's exposure. It's life showing you who you are, without the mask, without the roles, without the noise. And sometimes that's the only way truth gets in. Through the cracks. So next time everything falls apart, ask yourself, what if this isn't the end of something, but the beginning of me? Because it always is. 2. The strength hidden in sensitivity. You've probably heard it before said, you're too sensitive. And maybe you started to believe it, maybe you thought being emotional was a flaw, but the Stoics would tell you, that's nonsense. Sensitivity isn't weakness, it's awareness. It means you notice, you feel deeply, you see what others overlook. And awareness is the foundation of wisdom. Seneca once wrote, "The man who feels deeply and still chooses reason is the strongest of all." See, Stoicism isn't about becoming a stone, it's about becoming steady. It's about feeling the full weight of the world and still standing tall. One of my clients once told me, "I wish I didn't care so much." I said, "No, you don't. You just wish you could care without being controlled by it." That's the Stoic balance, not emotionless but emotionally intelligent. To feel sadness without collapsing, to feel anger without losing direction, to feel love without losing yourself. If you can feel everything and still choose calm, that's not fragility, that's mastery. So don't apologize for being sensitive, refine it, train it. Let your heart stay open, but guarded by clarity, because the world doesn't need colder people, it needs wiser ones. 3. Losing everything is how you find yourself. It sounds harsh, but it's true. You won't find yourself until you've lost what you thought you couldn't live without. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's your status, your job, your version of success. And when it's gone, it feels like your whole identity vanished with it. But that's not destruction, that's purification. Marcus Aurelius said, "Loss is nothing more than change, and change is nature's delight." When everything you cling to disappears, you're forced to face what's left, and that's you. Not the title, not the achievements, not the relationship, just you, raw, real, unfiltered. I've worked with men who lost their careers and women who lost marriages they built for decades. At first, they grieved what was gone, but over time, they started saying things like, "I finally feel free," because beneath everything they lost was themselves, waiting to be remembered. Losing everything isn't the end. It's a brutal act of grace, life tearing away the layers that weren't true so you can come home to who you've always been. When you stand there empty-handed, stripped of every illusion, and whisper, "I'm still here." That's rebirth. That's the start of your real life. 4. The sacred gift hidden inside the storm. There's something sacred about struggles, if you're awake enough to see it. We live in a culture that worships comfort. Everything is designed to make life easier, faster, smoother. But what if ease isn't the goal? What if your suffering isn't an interruption to your life, but the very process shaping it? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's one of the most powerful Stoic truths ever written. Because it flips the narrative. Your obstacles aren't blocking your path, they are your path. Think of a seed. It doesn't grow in sunlight alone. It has to be buried, pressed under dirt, pushed by gravity before it breaks open. That's you. Every heartbreak, every failure, every sleepless night is the soil pressing you toward growth. I once spoke to a man who told me, "I think life is punishing me." I said, "No, it's preparing you," and I meant it. The Stoics called it amor fati. Love your fate. Not tolerate it, not endure it, love it. Because what if the storm isn't trying to destroy you? What if it's trying to polish you? When you start to see pain as sacred, everything changes. You stop asking, when will this end? And you start asking, what is this teaching me? That's the shift from suffering to strength, from despair to meaning, from victim to warrior. These first 4 truths aren't meant to make you feel small, they're meant to make you awake, because you can't begin to rebuild until you stop pretending life should always be easy. The Stoics never asked for calm seas, they asked for the strength to steer through storms, and if you're watching this, chances are you've already survived more than you give yourself credit for. You've been through nights that would have broken others, you've walked through fire, and even if you stumbled, you came out wiser. That's the point. The purpose of these truths isn't to make you tougher, it's to make you truer. Because only when life strips away everything false, do you finally meet the person who was always meant to rise. Take a deep breath. If you've made it this far, you've already walked through the fire. And you're still here. That means you're ready for the next truths, the ones that go even deeper, the ones that don't just change how you think, but how you live. 5. The power hidden inside solitude. One of the hardest truths to face is this: you can be surrounded by people and still feel profoundly alone. You can have hundreds of friends online, and yet not one person who truly understands the storm inside you. But solitude, true solitude, isn't the same as loneliness. Loneliness is the fear of being with yourself. Solitude is the courage to meet yourself. Epictetus said, "If you want to be free, learn to be comfortable with being alone." We live in a world that constantly distracts us from silence. We fill every pause with noise, music, notifications, scrolling, anything to avoid the quiet. Because in the quiet, truth begins to whisper, and truth can be uncomfortable. But the Stoics believed that the mind becomes clear only in stillness. That's why Marcus Aurelius began every day in silence, reminding himself, "I will meet the selfish, the ungrateful, the arrogant, and I will remain steady." You can't do that without solitude. Solitude is your training ground. It's where you confront your fears, examine your thoughts, and rediscover what truly matters. So stop fearing time alone. Use it. Walk without your phone. Sit in silence. Because in solitude, you don't lose yourself. You find yourself again. 6. Adversity is the greatest teacher you'll ever have. People think wisdom comes from books, but the Stoics knew wisdom comes from wounds. Every great lesson you've learned came wrapped in discomfort. Failure, rejection, heartbreak, humiliation. These are not curses, they are your curriculum. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." You don't build muscle by avoiding resistance, and you don't build character by avoiding pain. You build it by facing what scares you and realizing you can survive it. Think about it. Every time you've fallen apart, you came back stronger. Not because the pain disappeared, but because you changed your relationship with it. You stopped asking, "This, why me, this, and started asking, "What is this shaping me into?" Adversity doesn't destroy you, it introduces you to the version of yourself that you couldn't meet any other way. The Stoics didn't pray for an easy life. They prayed for the strength to meet a hard one with grace. 7. The pain that purifies you. There's a kind of pain that doesn't just hurt, it transforms. It burns away illusions, attachments, and ego, until all that's left is what's real. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That's what pain does. It consumes what is false and reveals what is eternal. I once worked with a man who lost everything, his job, his home, his marriage. He told me, "It feels like life is destroying me." I said, "Maybe it's refining you." A year later he told me, "You were right. I didn't lose myself. I lost everything that wasn't me." That's what the Stoics meant by amor fati, to love your fate even when it burns. Because pain is not punishment, it's purification. Every scar is a symbol, proof that you faced the fire and came out stronger. You can't bypass the pain, you have to walk through it. But when you do, you discover something sacred on the other side. Peace. It's not the absence of struggle, but the acceptance of it. Pain doesn't ruin you, it refines you into someone untouchable. 8. Broken dreams are redirections, not failures. We all have dreams that didn't come true, jobs that didn't happen, relationships that didn't last, plans that fell apart, and in the moment, it hurts. Because we mistake the death of a dream for the death of meaning. But what if the Stoics were right, and life is not taking from you but redirecting you? Epictetus said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and you will find peace." That's radical acceptance, not passive surrender, but active alignment. It's trusting that the path that collapsed wasn't yours to begin with. Think of it this way. When a storm sinks your ship, it might be because the ocean wants you to learn to swim. When a door closes, maybe it's protecting you from a smaller life. Every time life said no, it was secretly guiding you toward a better yes. You might not see it yet, but one day you'll look back and whisper, "Thank you." The Stoics remind us, you are not being rejected, you are being redirected. Every broken dream is a compass pointing you back to your purpose. 9. The courage to begin again, and finally, the hardest, most liberating truth of them all, you can always begin again. No matter how broken, how tired, how lost you feel, you are never beyond renewal. The Stoics saw every morning as a rebirth. Marcus Aurelius would write in his journal, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to love." Starting over doesn't erase your past, it redefines it. It means you've learned what didn't work and are now ready to live more consciously. One of my clients, after losing everything, said, "I'm scared to start again. What if I fail again?" And I told him, "Then you'll start again, wiser. The only real failure is refusing to try, because every sunrise is proof that the universe believes in second chances. You don't need permission to reset your life, you just need courage. The quiet kind that says, 'I'm not done yet.'" That's what Stoicism is really about. Not suppressing emotion, not acting invincible, but standing up again, knowing you'll get knocked down, and still choosing to rise. You are allowed to rebuild yourself as many times as it takes, and every version you become brings you closer to who you are meant to be. When you understand these truths, solitude, adversity, pain, redirection, and rebirth, something inside you shifts. You stop fighting the flow of life, you stop chasing control, you stop begging for the storm to end, and you start dancing with it. That's the quiet revolution of Stoicism. It's not about changing the world around you, it's about mastering the world within you. Because once your inner world becomes unshakable, no external chaos can touch you. So take another breath, feel the weight you've been carrying slowly begin to lift. And remember, every storm ends, every scar heals, every ending makes room for a new beginning. This isn't where your story breaks, it's where it begins again. Take a moment, let everything we've just talked about sink in. Because what you've just heard, these 9 Stoic truths, they aren't theories, they're lived experiences. They're the blood, the sweat and the tears of human beings who refuse to let pain make them bitter, and chose instead to let it make them wise. You see, life will test you. It's supposed to. That's how the soul grows, through pressure, loss and renewal. Every person you admire has walked through darkness so deep they thought they'd never see light again. But they did. Not because the world changed, but because they did. That's what the Stoics understood better than anyone. You cannot control the storm, but you can control how you stand in the rain. You can't stop pain, but you can choose what it means, and meaning is everything. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He was right. Half of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from the stories we tell ourselves about it. The moment you stop fighting reality and start learning from it, that's the moment life becomes your teacher, not your enemy. Maybe you're going through something right now. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you're rebuilding after failure. Maybe you wake up each morning carrying a weight no one else can see. If that's you, listen carefully. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're shedding the layers that were never truly you. The expectations, the fear, the need for approval. Every challenge is carving away what's false so that what's real can finally breathe. Marcus Aurelius said, "The obstacle is the way." He meant that every roadblock isn't there to stop you, it's there to guide you toward the strength you didn't know you had. Every heartbreak is an invitation to love more wisely. Every failure is training for resilience. Every ending is the beginning of understanding. When you truly grasp that, freedom becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Because you stop needing life to be perfect before you can be peaceful. You stop demanding that people change before you can feel safe. You realize peace was never out there. It was always in here. That's what Stoicism offers us in a chaotic world. Not cold detachment, but warm clarity. Not the denial of emotion, but the mastery of it. Not the illusion of control, but the freedom of acceptance. And that freedom changes everything. You start waking up differently. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin saying, yeah, this is happening for me. Because pain, when met with understanding, becomes strength. Loss, when accepted, becomes wisdom. And solitude, when embraced, becomes peace. So tonight, when the noise fades and you're alone with your thoughts, don't run from them. Sit with them. Breathe through them. They're not there to punish you. They're there to remind you of what's real, what matters, and what kind of person you're still capable of becoming. If you take anything from this video, let it be this. You are not your mistakes. You're not your losses. You're not what happened to you. You're the one who chooses what it all means. That choice, that tiny moment of awareness, is where your freedom begins. So don't rush the process. Don't curse the storm. Walk through it, eyes open, heart steady. Because on the other side of every hardship is a quieter, wiser version of you, the one who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone, because peace has become your power. If this message spoke to you, if you felt even one truth hit home, then don't just leave it here, live it, practice it. Let these Stoic lessons become part of your morning, your choices, your conversations. And if you want to keep walking this path of clarity, calm, and unshakable strength, subscribe to Stoic Awakening More. Because this channel isn't just about philosophy, it's about transformation. Every week we'll explore new Stoic ideas that help you stay grounded, calm and purposeful in a world that's losing its center. So join this community of thinkers, warriors and seekers who choose wisdom over chaos and peace over pride. Take one last breath with me. Inhale, awareness. Exhale, resistance. You've already survived the hardest parts. Now it's time to rise, not harder but calmer, not colder but clearer, not unfeeling but unshakable. This is your awakening. Welcome to it. Welcome.